Well, hey there. I'm Pastor Cody,
And I'm Pastor Matt.
and we're here to have a conversation.
Yes, we are.
We sure are.
Let's do it.
Before we get started, I have random questions for you.
Okay.
I actually have two that I would like to get a hot take on here.
A hot take.
This is one that I thought, and y'all will be interested to hear his response to this, but this is
my goodness.
a question that I would
what's coming.
that I have a lot of fun thinking about in the 3 seconds that I've been thinking about it. What would a
Good, huh?
It's just a funny thought.
Yeah.
What would a world populated by just clones of you be like?
Oh. What would a world?
Can you imagine?
Oh man.
Just nothing but.
Yeah. It would be. What's that one statement?
How would you ever pull one over on somebody if it's just a world full of you?
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians. That's the statement that I would use to describe that.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that'd be a mess.
that would be a mess.
A world that I wouldn't want to live in. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of you.
It's a whole lot.
A bunch of rulers with nobody to rule but themselves.
Yeah. That's the truth.
Oh man. Yeah, if you have a question that you would like us to ask, I try to ask him something random every single week. But if you have one, drop it in the comments and we will well, that's for sure not trunk or treat candy that he just grabbed.
Well, no, I just wanted to share that this absolutely is trunk or
Oh,
treat.
it is.
And what we're doing is we're just sampling one piece out of every bag just to make sure that it's okay.
Anything
So
good in there?
everything is good.
You know-
Whoever bought this bag of candy for trunk or treat and not for our podcast, Sour Patch Kids, Kit Kat, Reese's, Frankencup. I don't even know.
Sounds
Say
like a
that.
gimmick to me.
Swedish Fish, Reese's White Ghost. Whoever bought this bag of candy, you know what good candy is. Just saying.
We don't know who bought it. But
I've only had one.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Anyway,
You heard it here first.
y'all
He
ready for
lied.
this conversation?
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Let's do it.
One more question though.
one more.
Because I need to hear your opinion on this, and then I'll give mine. Do you think that aliens exist?
Of course.
And okay, so how would you describe how you feel about that?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like, if they do, like, are they? They're not sons of Adam, right?
Was this like C.S. Lewis?
I don't
You
know.
son of Adam. You ever listen to him?
No.
Oh
I have
my
like 3 of his Audible books that I haven't gotten.
Never
into.
read any of it?
No.
Oh man, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I've seen like parts of the Chronicles of Narnia, but
They
it's
call
not the same.
humans son of Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm just being foolish, but yeah, there's probably some stuff out there.
You think so?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you read the Bible and these like creatures that are out there running around. If we saw one like outside of its scope of reason, heaven or whatever, the third heaven, if we saw it running around, we'd be like, oh, that's an alien.
So you would just say spiritual beings then for aliens?
Yeah, we can say
basically.
that. Yeah, apart from the Bible Project Spiritual Beings video, but
Fair.
I don't know. I mean, I think that, I always leave at this point. I'm leaving room for everything. Sure, yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. I
could
leave
see
room
something
for
like
it,
that.
and it's something that I've always had. My wife knows. I'll turn on like Ancient Aliens sometimes when we're at home. Good stuff.
This one pack is good.
That's his first one, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
in like the last 5 minutes. But I'll turn it on, and it's just a guilty pleasure of mine because I just like some of it's so nonsensical. I just love to laugh at it, but it's also like really intriguing.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
don't
here's
know.
my
It's
thing.
fun.
All the little cliche one-liners that like, we've been told to digest in the past about debunking all that stuff.
Right.
I just don't buy half of those, if any anymore.
No.
So
What's
I'm
an
just kinda
example
like,
of one of
yeah, sure.
those?
Eve is the mother of all living. Therefore, there are no aliens.
Oh, well, that's really dumb.
That's literally the argument.
Let me tell you something, son.
That's literally what I was told. But I'm like, okay, there's a lot of things that Eve isn't the mother of, that the
i.e.
Bible says
like
exist.
animals.
Yes.
All animals and plant life, she is not the mother of.
We just debunked it right there.
Oh, man.
My
yeah, that's
gosh.
it. So,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
if you've ever used that as an excuse to say that aliens don't exist, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Have fun listening.
I'm just going to be neutral on that one. Right there.
So, segueing into greener pastures here, not green people.
That for the Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah,
These things are so good.
they are good. They're sour, sweet, and then they're gone, just like children.
Good one.
Right?
Good one.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, we're talking about your message today. That's what we're talking about. I already
We're gonna
forgot.
have a conversation.
Yep, we're going to circle the wagons today. Why? Because his message is titled Circle the Wagons.
The wagons.
And we're talking about part 1 because this is going to be a part 2 thing.
Mhm.
A part 1 and 2 thing. So we're talking about, man, you really hit people in their pockets this week.
I did.
So we're talking about your money.
Well, I mean, when I wrote the
Talking
message,
about God's money.
when I wrote it was a busy week, right? When I wrote the message on Saturday night. But at some point, I'd done a lot of research in the commentaries, and I thought maybe I'll just blaze through chapter 16 and just give a lot of anecdotal advice, which is kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When I consider that Paul is just, the idea of circling the wagons. He's tying up these loose ends, if you will. Not that they're like super loose, but I think for like the reader, for the church, you're kind of getting hammered with all of these different things. And then, he's going to close the letter out, and, he gives some really good direction here. He talks about what he's all about, what he's doing, what his project is, which is this collection. And then he talks about the church leadership. He has some words about Apollos and Timotheus, whatever. And then he brags on one specific family, and then he gives like this charge at the end, and it's all really good. So I thought maybe I'll just get through all of it in one service and just like kind of systematically walk through that advice and not really expound too much. And man, when 9 a.m. hit and I did the first service, I spent the whole hour on the first section, which is really only 4 verses. So
yeah, I knew something was up when I saw that you had landed so early on Sunday.
Yeah. It wasn't that early.
It was early.
No.
It's really, you're never done before 12:30.
That's not true.
Never. Has he ever been done before 12:30?
Yes, I have been done before.
We'll let the people speak.
I have absolutely been done before 12:30. But yeah, I mean, I definitely was tying things up by 12:20, which was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into this discussion.
Yeah, man.
First Corinthians chapter 16, your message, Circling the Wagons. So
This is, by the way, still, I mean, even though there was a cutaway, this is still the same bag of Sour Patch Kids I've been working on since the beginning of this episode.
Absolutely. There's no thieving going on here.
None. It's testing. It's called testing.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of similar to Old Testament giving, where they would bring the first fruits of their crops and the priesthood would eat it.
That's right.
It's the same thing. Paul would support, and we'll see that in verses 1 through 4 here.
I couldn't keep a straight face. Which this is very applicable. These candies are very applicable to today's lesson.
It's true. We're using them as an object lesson.
This is the
not
Levitical priest offering. Right
exactly. In the form.
Sour Patch Kids. We've
good.
come a long way, baby.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
Come on.
Man,
I dig it.
we live off this stuff, just so you know. Your trick-or-treat donations sustain us day by day.
All that candy.
Yep.
No,
But-
I'm just kidding.
So
Not
for
McDonald's.
so for the beginning of this, or really your whole message, you kind of talked about just Paul's little project and his the gifts that he was collecting and how that correlates to my brain's not working today, y'all.
It's later
Just how that correlates to
later
us
in
and
the
how
day.
we view life. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And so really your whole message was kind of about giving and the implications of that, which I thought was cool because it's really not, you said it in the message, I'm only talking about money today because we talk about money when the Bible talks about money.
Sure.
And this is one of those chapters.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting, I think it's a much more helpful thing to talk about when it comes to giving than the stereotypical, Malachi chapter 3, you've robbed God with your tithes and offerings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like it's much more practical.
Well, I think I've heard some say that, and once again, I'm not nitpicking here, but I didn't plan this whole message to be about the first four verses. It's just that's how it happened, and and at some point, I could have done an extensive sermon research on New Testament giving and how it relates and correlates. That wasn't my intention. So I am just approaching this as Paul approached it here at the tail end of this letter. But it was an easy, it's an easy topic to preach on, and there's tons of material just in 4 verses.
It's true.
So, but I would say this, like thinking of Malachi chapter 3 and how we talk about, shall a man rob God or whatever. Wherein have you robbed me in tithes and offerings?
Mm-hmm.
I think that I've heard that preached many a time out of context.
Yep.
And
Every time. Out of context.
and applied to New Testament believers stealing from God. And I think, if my memory serves me right, and I didn't do a study on that for this week, but it was really a message to the priests, and how they were, essentially robbing the Lord and misappropriating in those offerings. If my memory serves me correct, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Well, it's just interesting, and I've heard, I'm not going to say any names of the person that I've heard this preached from multiple times where we used to go to church at. But, it's always, the exegesis in this passage is like, well, the vine is your family. And, so basically if you give, it's like a hedge of protection around your family if you're tithing, and then your offering is anything above your 10% as an act of worship, but 10% is your obligation, and that keeps your family safe. And I feel like I'm, I think that giving above and beyond the 10% mark is great, and, if you're able to, you should. But at the same time, I think the whole mentality produced when you look at this passage that way is it's like a mob. Like, to me, I've always thought it was like a mob payment. You pay the mob boss so your family can be safe. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that really gives the wrong idea. And nowhere in the New Testament is the concept of the tithe actually really brought in as a practice.
Well,
you know
I think
what I mean?
it's mentioned one time.
Radical giving, yes, but in the principle of you give 10% and then more. You know what I mean? It's just not.
Well, I think he talks about tithing off of the mint and things that the Pharisees do.
Right.
Jesus spoke to it specifically about how the Pharisees give, which is interesting, right?
Exactly.
But I would say this: it's if you look at every offering that was given and that was brought in, it was not 10%. It was more like 27% if you add up all of the Old Testament giving. Mm-hmm. So if we were to take an Old Testament principle of first fruits and add up all of those offerings and things that were given, it would be well above 10%.
Of course.
So I think that it's just all I'm saying here is it's not a direct correlation. We can't draw that direct line.
Right. It's not a one-for-one thing. I think that I think that if you're thinking about maybe a model to give, then
it's a great place to start.
It's a good place to start.
Right.
It's with it, but it's different. It's apples and oranges to me because you have
I can see that.
I always call it a temple tax. That's the word that I use for it because it was what you paid to basically uphold society.
Right.
And it was a gift to the Lord, but it was also a theocracy. Mm-hmm. So there's
it was totally different.
Right. Totally different.
That was the government.
Right. Exactly. So you have rugged tax payments, and then in the New Testament you have radical generosity.
Right.
Two very different things.
Exactly.
And in the New Testament, the heart is more of the concern rather than the contribution.
It is the concern.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the concern. And that is abundantly clear,
mm-hmm.
Over and over, through Paul's letters. He talks about it in Corinthians, giving from the heart,
mm-hmm.
and even in this. So anyway,
let's dive into this real quick.
Talking about
4
it
verses
from this perspective of how Paul approaches New Testament giving.
Yeah.
And once again, I didn't really set out to spend a whole message on this, and that's why there's not a ton of information in the program that reflects that. But I'm kind of pulling from the biography that I read on Paul from N.T. Wright.
I never finished that. I feel bad. I feel like I should finish it.
You should go back and finish it. It was really good. Honestly, it's been a while, been a long time since I've finished it. But just kind of pulling from my memory bank on that was pretty much Paul's big thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If we talk about for me, it's planting 20 churches. You know, if we get in the weeds enough about Bethlehem and my vision and my plan for our area, our community, and what we're going to do, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about even in the next 6 months of our church's history of where we're headed in that trajectory, but it's all ultimately leading to this thing of planting more churches. Mm-hmm. And so if you were to look at Paul and Paul's model, my takeaway from, N.T. Wright's book is if you were to talk about his ministry, a big part of his ministry was this offering, was this collection.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine, if you think about it, when we think about collecting an offering, it doesn't, it's a whatever thing. But if Paul is going to churches across the Roman Empire and collecting hard cash or coins, rather, I guess, and then
Think
taking it
about
back
the
to Jerusalem.
logistics.
The logistics of it, and I mean, just the
sheer danger of
transporting
money
that amount of money.
Yeah, it's insane,
Mhm.
this type of endeavor. And so that endeavor, my point Sunday was that, I think there's 5 like parallel passages that talk about this specific offering as it relates to different churches. But I mean, even right here in the text, he talks about how he, in verse number 1, now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. So, he even talks about it here in this, in verse number 1, about how this is something that other churches are involved in. So I think that, my point in this is that a huge part of Paul's ministry was the collection, was this offering that was to be given to care for the church at Jerusalem and those Jews specifically.
Collections.
Yeah.
What a sore topic for me at the moment.
Yeah. Anyway, that's funny. You want to tell everybody what you did?
No.
You should.
Wait, what?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the money that you just lost.
Oh, no, not that. I'm just talking about the Webflow collections.
Oh, that's
I hate
funny.
that crap.
Man, you've had a couple of doozies today that are wearing you down.
It's all right.
You poor
You know.
thing. Y'all pray for Pastor
I'm going
Cody.
to Texas Roadhouse later. So.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
That sounds good. Send it.
Yup. I'm going to send it.
Yeehaw. Tell them it's your birthday.
I hate the attention that comes with that. Like, I don't even if they gave me something for free, I'm like, please go away.
Right. Yeah, right.
I
You'd
don't
still do it. No, I'm kidding.
They're like, you come in here every time it's your the John Cooper in me wants to be like, that's right, give me that free food. Well, they don't even give you anything. They're just like, here, sit on this.
I thought
like
it was a dessert. No,
not there. They're just like, hey, sit on this very unstable saddle and wear this hat, and let's clap for you in front
so
of
many
everybody.
things I want to say. Moving on.
Moving on from that.
My point is our perspective of Paul, when we think about it, a lot of times in church, it's, he was just a church planner. It's like, no.
Not so.
He had projects and, things that he was trying to accomplish. And this was one of them. A huge part of Paul's ministry was this collection. And so we have to consider the overall context of this book. And what I've seen is that unity is huge. It is like he's pushing unity so much. It's you guys are trying to lean into your giftings or your rhetoric or what you think is important, but really you're doing nothing but dividing the church. Even in your giftings, it shouldn't be that way. Even in your loyalties to who you think is the person that's leading you in your faith, right? It's just over and over. Paul is trying to give this picture of what the church of God looks like and how it's this unified body.
Yeah.
And so this is a part of circling the wagons. He's saying all of my teaching, all of what this letter is carrying, it culminates to this part where you are going to contribute to this collection.
It's almost like he's beat around the bush for like 15 chapters, and he's like,
it.
oh, by the way, the reason I'm writing to you
That's right. That's right.
is we need money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not we need, it's they need.
Right, exactly.
And that's where
that's the dividing line.
That's
right
the
there.
dividing line. And how is there a better way to show unity in the church than them giving their financial wherewithal, right? You know what I mean? Them sacrificially contributing to these brothers and sisters that were not like and are not like them,
right?
But are them in the body of Christ, So
and I think when
thing.
And I think when you really boil it down, like that's what it is. The power of the gospel is bridging that economic gap where those who have are giving to those who have not.
Yeah.
And one of the pitfalls for us culturally, I think, as at least as conservatives, when we talk about the dangers of wealth distribution on a government level, or redistribution, should I say, people will look at this and say, oh, well, Paul wasn't, against wealth redistribution. And it's like, well, no, but it's different. You know what I mean?
I say it often. I'm a socialist in the church,
right?
But I'm a conservative in my politics.
Yeah.
I believe in a conservative government. In that regard, not huge, but I believe that if the church, if the church was working the way the church should work, then the government hopefully would be put out of a job as it pertains to those things.
Oh, they'll be put out of a job eventually.
Well, but think about it. They're allowed their overreach and they're allowed their
because there's a need.
And
if there wasn't a need, there'd be no overreach.
And and I know that some will disagree with this, but the government leverages that need to continue to put themselves in power.
Oh, for sure.
And so that's always something, right? And so the church,
that one's for you, Harry Logan, calling you out.
But the church is doing the opposite here. The church is saying, what we have, we're not going to leverage against them. We're going to take what we have and we're going to give it away to them because they need it, and we're going to ask for nothing in return. And what that's going to produce is love. That's going to produce love across the board. And we're going to see that in, as this in circles and as Paul kind of draws to a conclusion here. It's the opposite of how our government works.
Right.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Because the heart is the concern.
That's right. And so I saw an opportunity here as talking about this collection, and I want you to understand that this isn't an apples for apples comparison. I think it's better. I think it's a better comparison than Malachi chapter 3. But I'll say this. It is a specific offering. So it is a special offering.
For sure.
And what I'm saying is not like, this is something that we're doing here in our church, or that's what your weekly giving looks like. No, but there are principles that are, facilitating and fueling this collection and this offering and how they're doing it that do apply and that are, connected with what we're doing today. And so that was the point of the message is let's connect some of the biblical principles that are fueling Paul's project here for the collection for the saints, and then let's apply them today. Maybe it can help us. Maybe it can help us be better givers, and facilitators of the gospel.
I agree. And I think that's one of the perks of, you have, taking a hyper literal approach to Scripture where everything is, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but everything is like this is for you. Like, well, no, Paul isn't writing this for us, but when we interpret this in context and say, oh, well, okay, well, how can these principles affect how we live and give in the church today, then I think we're really getting somewhere. That's my opinion.
Yeah. It was a help to me, just kind of seeing, the progression here and what he was calling them to do. I was like, yeah, this is so very helpful.
Yeah. If I were Paul, I'd be like, okay, I will pay somebody to take this for me because I know I'm going to get mugged.
Right.
Well, because that's just my luck. I would have totally got taken for everything on,
Well, he even says it, when I come, whomsoever you shall approve by your letters, them will I send to bring you. This is different than this. Obviously, I'm reading from the old King James here. Bring your liberality.
What verse?
Into Jerusalem, verse 3. And if it is meet that I go also, they shall go with me. So he's talking about the help that they're going to provide.
Yeah.
Because, obviously he's going to need help. This is going to be a crazy big offering.
Yeah.
What they're doing, and it's pretty awesome. But
who in our church would you take with you if you had to?
I just let the finance committee handle it. Those 3 women, boy, they can all handle themselves.
Yeah?
Yeah, they'd crush it.
Cool.
Yeah, man. They'd be like the Wells Fargo carriage.
The Wells.
Rock solid Brinks truck right there.
I'd be more like the Oregon Trail carriage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm broken in the first scene.
That's funny. But yeah, I think it's really good. So just some observations about the offering. We talked about it was something that required trust. Excuse me.
That was my fridge. Oh, you were just burping.
The light. I burped, yeah. It was those, maybe the candy's not good. I should probably try it.
Maybe just one more.
It caused an indigestion.
I'd
try it just to make sure.
We're just making sure it's safe, that's all.
Do you want one?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. But we talked about, number one, it's something that required trust, and that's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of us that were de-churched maybe at one point in time, and good heavens, it's all over the place. People are misappropriating funds and misusing funds, and I think that it's easy in the church to, and here's my point: it's easy in the church to say there's a reason why I'm not giving what I'm supposed to do.
For sure.
And Paul is saying, stop looking for a reason to not, and just trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. The burden of proof is not on you, it's on the church leadership. And that was number 4. It was something that the church leadership planned and made provision for the distribution.
Yep.
So this is something that I've seen over and over again, that when church leadership misuses funds, like the Lord gets the last laugh.
He does.
It is over and over and over again. where the Lord takes care of those. He chastises those, whom are his,
Yep.
or who are not, and who
Ananias
are
and
abusing.
Sapphira.
Woo, that's a big
Heavy.
one.
Yep.
Yeah, but I just think that we excuse ourselves from the scenario of trust, and then we miss an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
We miss an opportunity to be a part of something that is bringing about the kingdom of God in this world. And so it's the same reason why I don't like preaching about money, because
it's
people,
awkward.
people question motives, but in the same regard, if I don't motivate you and preach scripture and are faithful to it, then I'm missing an opportunity to give you a blessing, for you to say, I'm going to act in faith and I'm going to trust, because when you act in faith and you trust the Lord with your finances, the Lord blesses.
He does.
It's a biblical principle.
Not in a mob boss kind of way where
No.
you pay for your protection, but just that he rewards those who are diligent and faithful to him.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I think that it's so, if especially if you're already kind of on the fence, if you're in a mindset where like, well, I would give, but I don't like this, or I would give, but fill in the blank. You know, it's very easy to find a reason not to.
Right.
Especially, if you're giving sacrificially, which I think is you have it right here in number 3. It was not equal giving, but equal sacrifice.
Right.
Whether you were, economically poor or wealthy, like everybody was expected to give sacrificially within their own means, whatever that looked like.
Yeah, right here in the text with the King James, it says, as God hath prospered him.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's saying on the first day of the week. So this is an offering that took place at church on Sunday.
Yeah.
And he's saying, let every one of you lay by him in store as God hath prospered him. And so this really gets to the heart of the message. I was talking about this idea of a partnership. And if the church really looked at what they did during the week as a partnership with the Lord to lay aside for the work of God. And that's where this does correlate. What Bethlehem is doing is a gospel ministry, a gospel work. We've had, what is it, 21 people follow the Lord in believers' baptism this year.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that Bethlehem has done has contributed to that. And so, it's a big deal when you think about when you put money in the plate and you contribute towards the work here. You're contributing towards that gospel work. And so the more money you put in, the bigger the work, right? The more gospel impact. And so just think about it. If the Lord, is waiting for us to partner with him, then how much you have to reverse engineer that and think, how many of us are not living in faith? We're not living in trust. So therefore we're not living to our potential in that partnership.
Yeah.
We're not living to that place where the Lord says, man, I want to pour out my blessings. And this isn't prosperity gospel in the sense that, give so you get. Not at all. But the point is if the end goal in mind is more people coming to Jesus, and that's the goal, not me getting rich, more people coming to Jesus, then why would the Lord not enlarge your coast? Why would the Lord not enlarge your business? Why would you not partner with God? If you're a Christian and you are self-employed or you're entrepreneurial and you haven't partnered with God in your business, it's a huge miss.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I don't talk about it much, but I'm also a business owner, not just a pastor, and that's just something that my wife and I decided to do. I mean, it's just, if the Lord blesses us on this end, then the church will be blessed. It is it's a lifestyle. And so I think, and I know just from this passage here with Paul having the same, as the Lord hath prospered, we should not separate the two.
Well, I think we do. I think we separate our successes and, that's ours. And we throw it's like every cliche country song. You go to church and you throw a 20 in the plate on Sunday, and it's a very different, Paul is saying, because God has prospered you, you should give to God's people. It's a pretty simple correlation in Paul's mind, it seems.
Well, in the book of Romans, it says, talking about this offering, you received the faith because of these Jewish brothers and brothers and sisters, rather. And, it's reasonable for you to take care of them physically because of what you received spiritually.
Right.
So, this is just it speaks to a larger problem in our culture, that we are blessing people instead of partnering with God for God to bless people.
Right.
And it's a huge problem. It's a huge misconception. And I think preaching 10% also is a problem
Mm-hmm.
because that is a lack of partnership. That is you doing your thing, you doing your part, and then
Right.
the
mafia lets
the
you
rest,
keep your storefront.
yeah, the rest is yours.
Yeah.
It's just, and for those of you that say, oh no, you're discouraging people to tithe. Most people I know that actually tithe give more.
Mm-hmm.
So if you check your own heart, which there are good brothers and sisters that believe in tithing, I'm not robbing you from that. See what I did there? I'm not robbing you. You need to get another cup of coffee.
What?
You're like, ha. Cody's having sleep over here. I'm not robbing you from that blessing, but I'm here to just point out that when you say I tithe and I give to Faith Promise and I give to a building fund you're actually doing a lot more than that.
You're doing a lot.
A lot.
And really, like you said, and like what Paul said, like the bottom line is all of us, like, yeah, we all were reached with the gospel because of the work of Jesus and his gospel, but $1 was behind that. Like somebody gave so that, your church, this church could keep its lights on, or this podcast can happen, or the sermon, and fill in the blank. All of these things are funded. And to separate the work of God from the financing of the work of God, I think is a conceptual mistake. Not that he needs our money, but it's very obvious that he uses our money. Yep. Our money is used to reach people. And when we look at giving through the lens of, well, if I give X amount of dollars this year, how many people will hear about Jesus? Or how many people will be impacted by, like, the trunk or treat event that's coming up? How many families are going to be impacted by that, or blessed, or added to our church and thus spiritually awakened because of that?
That's right.
And it's not, you're not just buying candy, right? Like it's not what's happening. You're investing in somebody else's eternity.
That's right.
And that's what giving's all about. Yeah.
We're trying to connect that.
Right. We're connecting dots.
Hey. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just trying to erase that misconception of something that will here's what I also don't want. I don't want this to be, where you have no faith in it, where it's just like this is just what I do. I got $100, I give 10. Boom. There's no heart in that.
I'm off the hook now.
Right. There's no heart in that. I want this
give
to
20
be
instead.
No,
I think your heart will be enough. Just kidding.
we want you to engage in a relationship with God. We want you to pray in the Holy Spirit and find out, is this what he has for you?
Yep.
It's so much more than that, and that's what I'm after. And this collection, for Paul to address it here in the closing remarks, and
as he circles the wagons.
Yeah, and he talks about that, and he talks about his travel itinerary.
As he circles the Wells Fargo wagons.
It's just important for us to see these principles that Paul leaves for us in our giving. And so if you haven't listened to the message, go back, listen to it. Well, I apologize. The audio is a little weird.
It's a little tinny, but
it's
still
tinny.
good.
We're working through some stuff.
Yeah.
But it's an important reminder that God is looking for a partnership with you. And I just think too, it's like when I have these messages and these things that, when we talk about that, I'm a visioneer. I think about
no way. What?
Yeah. I think about what could we do? What could we do if everyone in our church, if 50%, if half of our church were to just partner with the Lord in this area of their lives?
And I think a lot of you would be shocked at just how far we stretch the money that does come in.
You would be, and the finance committee knows that, and we're very frugal, and we every penny is accounted for, which is why there's a clear conscience, and when we say, hey, the leadership, pursues these plans, and we do it with frugality and oversight and all of that, so we can say these things with confidence, which is why we're saying, hey, trust the process, get involved, don't let past hurt, don't let past bad experiences affect your faith future, because you're cutting yourself off.
And that pack gives you
I don't think this one's good either. I better try another.
Better try one more.
I'm just trying to say to you, look, from a biblical perspective, you're missing a blessing, and so don't let that keep you from the collection. As the Lord hath prospered you, Paul says, let him lay in store. So wherever you are in this, challenge the Lord in that regard, in the partnership. And I promise he's always going to come through. He's always going to bless you with more, and we're not talking monetarily.
It do be like that.
It do be like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to next week.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
We'll talk a little bit more about the leadership.
Yep.
About some of the things that Yeah, about some of the things that Paul talks about with Apollos and Timothy, and then just a really energetic closing here about some of the things that he says. Verse 13 on, and I would say verse 13 to verse 18, some really good stuff. I've got 4 actionable items that Paul leaves you with, and all of them are just
he does hit it pretty hard in his closing.
They're excellent.
And if you wanna get ahead, this is the same outline that we'll have next week.
Yeah, it's
we're
already
really
on
just
there.
getting the
Yeah, if you go on the program, next week's sermon is there because it's the same sermon. It was just too much information.
Yep, BethlehemChurch.cc/program, and those notes are hyperlinked in this post, and so is the message.
That's right. God bless you. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
For this conversation, and hey, we love you.
We love you. Thank you for hanging out.
Peace.
Peace.